everything.
It's everything. I'm everything.
Welcome to the Emajae Talks Everything podcast, where I talk politics, I talk pop culture, and everything in between. I'm Emajae. And before I get started, before we get into things, because we got a lot to get into today, okay? But before I do, I have a task for you, okay? I have something to ask you because I thought we were friends. I thought we were cool, okay? And I think we are. But if we are friends and you really rock with Emajae Talks Everything, I'm gonna need you to take 3 seconds. I'm gonna give you 3 whole seconds, and I need you to like this video, subscribe, comment, share if you're listening to me via one of the many platforms where I'm available. Then go ahead and make sure that you have the notifications on so that you get notified when I am talking, okay? Make sure that you do this. So let me go ahead and give you the 3 seconds. I promise you 3 seconds. So ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm gonna need you to have done that. That was your task, okay? Before the end of this video, I need you to have liked, commented, subscribed, put your notifications on, because this week we have a lot to get into. The past few weeks we've been getting into it, and it's only gonna get better from here, okay? So now that you've done your job, I wanna go ahead and do mine and get into everything that's in the news, okay? And this is why I really am here for my podcast, right? Not to toot my own horn, but I really am excited about this podcast because we really are going to get into topics that just almost don't seem like they relate. So today I want to talk about Cardi B and Offset and all of the drama that they have going on. But I also want to get into Donald Trump. And I was curious of how long it was going to take before I got into my political bag, but now you have the answer. Three whole episodes. It took me, we were doing good. You know, I was trying, but 3 whole episodes, and now we're here. So let's start off with Cardi and Offset before we get to the other man over there on that side. And let's just kick it off. I have a lot to say. So of course, let me pull up my handy dandy notes. If you've been watching, then you know that I love receipts. I love to, start from a baseline of facts. Okay, that's how we do it over here. And if you haven't watched my previous 2 episodes, then you need to make sure that you do that after you're done watching this video. Okay, because we've been getting into it in the past 2 weeks, and you need to get caught up. Okay, so let's get into it. Cardi B, Offset, the drama, the tea. And I thought about, okay, how do I want to address this? Because currently, let me actually take a step back. So currently, Offset and Cardi have been in the news within the past week or so because here recently, Cardi B officially announced or confirmed that she has moved on from Offset. Okay, she got her a new man. She's dating Stefan Diggs. She is living her best life without Offset. And guess who mad? Take one guess about who's mad about that. Mr. Offset himself, okay? And so what does he do? He decides, well, I'm not with her anymore, so what can I do to disturb her peace? File spousal support. And that's what has had social media up in arms over the past few weeks. Now, I do have a lot of opinions about Offset's decision to file for spousal support, and I'm going to get into that. However, I do think it's important to take a step back, okay, and start from the beginning of this Cardi B Offset relationship, because truth be told, it has been chaotic since almost the beginning. And so we're going to take a walk down memory lane and we're going to get into it. Now, first and foremost, shout out to Billboard, because I ran across a Billboard article and the article really outlines their relationship. Now, I'm not about to go through all 8 years worth. I'm not about to. We're not doing that, okay? We're not gonna do that. But I am gonna walk through kind of the highlights and the high moments that will really help us get a sense of how we ended up here today, okay? So walk with me and let's go ahead and get started. Again, shout out to Billboard for putting this timeline together. Y'all a real one. So, okay, let's see. So it starts off, well, actually, let me start off with the kind of big picture. So it says, from bumps in the road to baby bumps, Cardi B and Offset's relationship has been quite the roller coaster ride. The duo's relationship began in early of 2017 and has since brought cheating scandals. A secret marriage. Kids. Okay, shout out to the kids. We love the kids. Okay, shout out to the kids. And some hot collaborative tracks. Cardi and Offset secretly married on September 20th of 2017 before the Migos rapper proposed to her on stage at Power 99's Powerhouse concert in Philly. According to a Georgia court, Cardi filed for divorce from Offset nearly 3 years later, September 15th, 2020. The two eventually got back together, only for Cardi to then file for divorce again last summer. There have been accusations of infidelity on both parts, but the couple previously maintained their love for one another, from super lavish gifts bestowed upon each other and their children, to making their videos family affairs, like the jealousy video. Set and Cardi have been public about their feelings for each other during both the peaks and the valleys. Billboard has compiled a timeline of the hip hop power couple's relationship, from collaborating on music to filing for divorce to babies and beyond. So let's get into it. The first thing, so February 5th, 2017 through August of 2017. So from February to August of 2017, we have Cardi and Offset rumors that they're together, but they're denying their relationship, okay? They're denying their relationship up until October of 2017. That's when Cardi or Offset wishes Cardi B a happy birthday on Instagram, and he essentially confirms that, okay, that's his boo, okay? They're together. Then you have about 10 days later, so he confirms it on October 11th. 10 days later, Cardi posts and deletes an IG selfie saying single and peace out, which, you know, fuels rumors that they've broken up. So he announces it on October 11th, and 10 days later, we already have our first IG post and delete, I'm single situation. The day after that, she posts on Twitter that they're back together. Now, last week, I was talking about the show Forever on Netflix. I did a whole recap. Again, if you haven't watched that video, then you definitely should. We really broke that show down. And I talked about how it was kind of like a lot of, you know, back and forth, but those were high school students. Like, Forever centers around a high school first love romance. Cardi and Offset are so grown, and they were doing the same, like, you see why we have to take it back? You see why we have to go down the timeline and give context? Because we're just starting off, and you can already see how childish this relationship is. So let's just move forward, because there's a lot to get through. So she posts on Twitter they're back together a day after she said that they weren't. Then we go a week later. A week after she confirms that they're back together, this is October of 2017, Offset proposes to Cardi during a performance for Power 99's Powerhouse in Philly. Now, they were denying the relationship up until October 11th. 3 weeks later, he's proposing. Interesting. Very interesting. Not to mention that they met before 2017, but they didn't start dating until 2017. And by the end of that year, they were already, how do y'all feel about that? How do y'all feel about that? I am not one for quick, engagements. Like, marrying somebody under a year is wild to me. I hear stories sometimes about, oh, my parents, they were together for like 6 weeks or 2 weeks and they got married and they've been together 50 years. Well, shout out to your mama. Shout out to your mama and shout out to your dad, but that is not gonna work over here. I need to see you through all of the 4 seasons. I need to see you when you're upset, when you're sad, when you're ecstatic, I just need to see so much more than I can really get in under a year. So for me, that's already kind of like a red flag. And I think it already speaks to the fact that this was a roller coaster. Like, they were really, you know, in for a ride. And I think you can already tell, like, in less than a year, they were engaged and gonna get married. Like, oh my goodness, I can't relate. So anyway, let's move forward. He proposes to her on stage during concert. That's also another red flag for me, but we'll keep going. Then December 24th, Offset is accused of cheating. So he proposes October 29th, and less than a month later, we have the first official on the record Offset is cheating scandal. Now, I do partially remember this. So this particular cheating scandal, there was a video that surfaced online, and in the video, it appeared to be Offset with a IG model girl, Selena Powell. And Offset comes out and he's like, oh, my iCloud got hacked. Now, I don't know how your iCloud getting hacked relates to that not being you in the video, but you know, Cardi was cool with it. She denied that he was cheating. He denied that they were cheating. They moved on, and yeah, that they were good with it. So if they like it, I love it. Okay. So moving forward, January of that next year, Offset gets a tattoo of Cardi B. It's giving very much I messed up, so I have to go out of my way to prove my love and do this huge, you know, performative display of affection because I'm acting up behind closed doors. That's what it's giving. For you to have this cheating accusation December 24th of 2017, and then what is that, 2-3 weeks later, you're getting this tattoo? Like, okay, Offset. So March 19th of 2018, Cardi addresses cheating rumors in Cosmo. She does an interview with Cosmo and she addresses the cheating rumors. And I want to kind of point out something that she said and talk about it. So it says, as Cosmopolitan's April cover star, this is again back in 2018, Cardi B opened up about her situation with Offset. She said, it's like everybody is coming down my neck. Like, why are you not leaving him? You have low self-esteem. I don't have low self-esteem. I know I look good, Cardi told Cosmo in an interview. I know I'm rich. I know I'm talented. I know I could get any man I want. This is why there's an issue with this statement. Because first of all, let's start from the beginning. It's facts. Cardi B is that girl. Like, I'm a Cardi B, you know, girly over here, you know, so good for her. She does look good. She is rich. She is very talented, and she could get probably any man that she wants, right? But the problem is none of those things mean that you don't have low self-esteem. And that is something that we just have to point out. The prettiest girls, the smartest girls, the most talented girls, or women, should I say, are out here. And how many of them are staying in relationships with men who ain't about nothing? How many of them? You can be the baddest out there. You can be the smartest out there. You can be all of these things, but it is a sign of how much you love and respect yourself and your self-esteem based off of who you keep in your space. And I think there's an argument to be made that there must be some type of self-esteem issue for you to keep yourself attached to this man who disrespects you. And anybody who has really had feelings for somebody, who has really loved somebody, knows it can be tough, right? To rid yourself of being around or attached to this person, regardless of how you otherwise feel about yourself. But I do think it's a fair point for somebody to say, girl, why don't you feel like you deserve more? Or why don't you feel like you're entitled to more? So I just feel like it's interesting that in addressing Offset in his cheating, she goes to the idea of, well, it's not a self-esteem issue because I look good and I'm talented, but those things aren't necessarily indicators of your self-esteem. We had Beyonce give a whole Lemonade album, and she said, Beyonce and the whole world knows she's that girl, right? See what I did there? We all know that Beyonce's that girl, but she was also vulnerable in sharing with us that because of her relationship with Jay and that time that she was going through where he was cheating, she doubted herself. She felt like, oh my goodness, what is it about me that I'm not enough for you? So I don't really think it's a fair statement to say, oh, I look good, or I'm smart, or I'm this, or I'm that, so I don't have low self-esteem. A huge indicator of your self-esteem is who you allow in your circle, who you allow in your space. Okay, Cardi. So let me just put that out there. So moving on, after this interview, that's when we get the Cardi B song, Be Careful With Me. That's my song. I love it. We have April 7th, 2018. She reveals that she's pregnant on SNL. We remember that. Everybody thought that her career was over because that's what people tend to do when women become mothers. For some reason, we've been conditioned to believe that a woman can't have it all. So that's another episode, trust me. And then we have 2 days later, again, she's addressing cheating scandals over and over again. Then we have October. Yeah, I mean, goodness, I'm going down this timeline and you guys would be surprised at how many times it's just Cardi B addressing. I mean, it's not funny. It's not funny at all, actually. But I do want to point out that one of these interviews where she's addressing his cheating, she mentions how for a long time they didn't trust each other. But she says, she also mentioned that Offset is a great business partner. She said, I don't really know the music business too well. You can tell that this is an old article. This is from 2018, right? She said, I don't really know the music business too well, she admitted. So I always feel like people are taking advantage of me. He as an Offset, is always making sure that I'm well taken care of or that I'm learning something. And I feel like, how important of a statement is that? Very, right? Like that's a very important statement because I think it sheds a lot of light onto what really attracted Cardi to Offset. She's in this new space, she's in this business. And let's remember, we knew of the Migos and Offset, although he wasn't nearly as, famous as he is now. We knew who the Migos were before we knew Cardi, and we knew who Offset was before we knew Cardi, most of us, right? And so she's coming into this business where there are a lot of people who are trying to take advantage of you, the entertainment, music industry. And so she probably did partially fall in love with Offset because he was protecting her in business. And in protecting her in business, in that space, I could see, what girl doesn't want to feel safe and protected? However, what we do know is that safety and protection wasn't translating into their personal romantic relationship. But I think it's interesting that she points out that, she says, I'm so well taken care of, but she's talking within the context of the music business. And I'm sure that played a huge role in her falling in love with this man romantically. But business and pleasure are two different things, Cardi. Okay, so let's move on. So it's a lot of her addressing cheating, right? So in December of 2018, Cardi announces her split from Offset. 10 days later, December 15th, Offset tries to get her back in a very public way, according to the timeline, okay? So apparently he goes on IG and he's like, oh, the only thing I want for my birthday is Cardi. I want my woman back. It's giving ick. It's giving very performative. It's giving you don't want her back, you just don't want to lose her. And those are two different things. He turns that apology public and he shows up to her performance. Where was she performing? Let's see. Oh, Rolling Loud in LA. She was performing. And that's where you might be familiar, where he goes on stage and he brings all these flowers and he does this super public apology. Yeah, child. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I don't like performative gestures. It feels like he proposed to her on stage. Now you're trying to get her back on stage. It's like if the disrespect is happening, it doesn't matter what you do in front of people. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are you doing behind closed doors? You can't even respect me behind closed doors, but you want to go out of your way to make it seem like you really care for me by these big grand gestures. It doesn't do it for me. So whatever, that's what he did. 2018. They reconciled, so I guess it worked. Cardi was cool with it. And basically for the next year and a half until mid 2020, they were seemingly good. But then September 15th of 2020, Cardi B files for divorce. So of course, everything that glitter ain't gold, old wise woman you once told me. So everything was seemingly good. September of 2020, Cardi files for divorce, but then they reunite, right? So it's like, again, there's this back and forth. She calls off the divorce later that year. She has her baby. They're doing good, seemingly. More cheating rumors come out. Cardi says she's single again. She files for divorce officially last summer on January 31st, 2024. Okay. So this is, we're getting caught up. We see there's been a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of we're together, we're not together. Very childish. Very childish, but nonetheless, Cardi files for divorce July 31st of 2024. The day after, okay, August 1st of 2024, my girl Cardi announces that she is pregnant with baby number 3. And I will never forget seeing that, because it's like, dang girl, like, ooh, child, like, not you pregnant again. And listen, babies are a beautiful thing, right? Like, it is what it is. She's pregnant with this child. Good for her, right? But I know that she must have been like, my goodness, another baby by this man who I'm trying to get away from. And I think I'm not going to get into it too much, because there's other points that I want to make that are more pressing for this particular conversation today. But I do think there's something to be said about the way men will try to trap women with a baby. And oftentimes there's, a lot of discussion about, oh, a woman will trap you. She'll get pregnant and trap the man. But I've never understood that, because it's like, you do know that the woman is the one carrying the child, and typically the woman is the one who bears a lot of the responsibility of raising the child a lot of the times, right? Taking on a lot of the main responsibilities. So I never understood how a woman getting pregnant traps the man more than a woman getting pregnant traps the woman. Because I think a lot of these men will try to get you pregnant. Okay. Yeah, I'm saying it. They will try to get you pregnant because they feel like, if you have my baby, then you're connected to me. Even though I don't want you, it's this idea, if I get you knocked up, then another man isn't going to want you. And let me tell you why I think that's particularly true in this situation. Because after she filed for divorce, they were going back and forth, right? They started exposing each other all on social media 10 times as much. And I noticed that a lot of the comments and a lot of the digs that Offset would have towards Cardi were aimed at the fact that she was the mother of his kids. He would make comments like, who's gonna want you now? Like, you have my babies, you are a mother of like, he would straight up just say this stuff. Like, talking to the Cardi B, the one and only Cardi B, telling her that no one is gonna want her because she's pregnant, because she has all of these kids. That is a perfect example of a man trying to use your pregnancy or your children to trap you. It happens. It happens like that. And I noticed that Offset was doing that quite a bit. And I just thought it was stupid, first of all, because we're talking about Cardi B here. Let's just actually just begin and end there. But most importantly, around the same time after the divorce, we started hearing rumors that Cardi B was, hanging out, chilling with Stefon Diggs. Now, if you're not familiar, Stefon Diggs is a pretty popular football player. I'm gonna be honest, I can't remember what team does this man, let's look him up. Let's see. Of course, the Patriots. No wonder I couldn't remember. The Patriots, right? So he's a pretty famous football player, pretty good football player. And it was rumored that him and Cardi were hanging, but they were denying it. They were on the low. Custody information starts coming out, and it's like, almost the more that the rumors about Cardi B and her rumored relationship with this man, Stefon Diggs, the more we heard about that, the more toxic it sounded like this divorce between her and Offset were getting, which makes sense because you're dealing with Offset, who is obviously very immature, I'll say, and immature in the way he thinks. And controlling, seemingly, like I said before, he seems like the kind of guy who, he might not want you, but he doesn't want anybody else to have you either. And that's a very particular kind of man that we all should be staying away from, okay? So let's talk about that's the history. That's kind of how we got here. That's the turmoil of their relationship. Now, here recently, May 12th, Cardi and Stefan Diggs essentially confirmed their romance. Now, the timeline is saying May 12th. Why do I feel like it was more recent than that? I don't know why I feel like it was more recent than that. But regardless, within the past few weeks, they have pretty much confirmed that they are a couple, that they are a thing. They were hanging courtside at a New York Knicks game and they were booed up. You know, she was with her new man. She looked happy. She looked like she was beyond Offset, and she was doing her thing. And I think that is what got us to where we are today, because when a man is seemingly out of control of a situation and he doesn't know how else to make you upset, because remember, he thought that when they broke up, Cardi B was not gonna have no play because she has these kids and she's pregnant. And when he sees that don't matter, now he's like, okay, what can I do? And that's why I believe he filed for spousal support, okay? And that's why they have been in the news here recently. Now, do I think that this man is entitled to spousal support? I don't. I don't think that it's right for him to be seeking spousal support. Let me tell you why. I'm never gonna say that. I don't think it's right that he is looking for spousal support, because from my perspective, he doesn't need it. One, right? Spousal support is, I have been in a relationship with this person. We have maintained a certain type of lifestyle that I will no longer be able to maintain without being in this relationship. And I am deserving of it for ABC reasons, right? I invested in this relationship. I had to put my career to the side as part of building this relationship. There are a lot of reasons, a lot of factors that a court will consider to determine whether or not a spouse is entitled to spousal support. At a high level, Offset doesn't seem to be needing any financial support from Cardi B. His career is still, I know he dropped an album and I don't think nobody listened to it, if I'm being honest, but nonetheless, this man is always on social media talking about the money that he has, right? The chains that he has, the houses and the cars. So it's like, you have already made a part of your brand the fact that you live a certain lifestyle. Do you mean to tell us that Cardi B was funding your lifestyle? Because that's the only way we get to spousal support. If your whole argument is, I can't maintain my lifestyle, I can't pay for my bills without the help of Cardi B, that's the only way we're getting there. But that's not what you're saying. You're really not saying anything. His lawyers came out and said, oh, basically we're seeking spousal support because she's asking me for everything. Cardi B has said that she is the primary caretaker of her children financially. She's the one who pays the bills in the house. She's the one who's taking care of her kids financially. So again, what are you seeking? You're just leveraging the legal system to perpetuate your own pettiness. And it's really sad. And it's really controlling. It's really indicative of somebody who, again, doesn't want to be with Cardi, but just doesn't want somebody else to be with her. He wants her to be miserable. And it's like, how many times did you cheat, Offset, during this relationship? Just go be with who you want to be and let her be with who she wants to be. It's very petty and it's very immature. Now, that's really all I have to say about them, to be honest with you. The reason I really wanted to bring them up, though, is because how can I say this? How can I say this in a way that's not... Okay, I'm gonna just go out and say it. They should have had a prenup, okay? They should have had a prenuptial agreement. If you are not familiar with what a prenuptial agreement is, it is essentially a contract. It is a contract between people who are about to enter usually a marriage, and you just lay out what would happen in the event that you two are no longer together, right? So if you're gonna get married, I think it is important to say, okay, if this marriage does not last, how are we gonna split the assets? Are you going to get 50% of, everything that I own coming into this? Is it just what we build together while in the marriage? I mean, you can put almost anything into a prenuptial agreement. And as this conversation has been coming up over the past few days, ever since Offset filed for spousal support, I've had this conversation with many people, many people. And I've honestly noticed that my friends who are attorneys, who are, lawyers or whatnot, we are all pretty consistent in the idea of, yeah, they should have had a prenup. And yes, I would get a prenup. My friends who are not attorneys, who are not lawyers, have pretty consistently been like, I can see why you would say that, but I'm not pro prenups. And I have to say, listen, I get it. First and foremost, do what makes sense for you and your family. Before anything else, always start from a place of doing what you think is best for you and your family. However, I truly think that prenuptial agreements are the best route for anybody who is about to go into a marriage. And the reason why I think that most of those of us who felt like, yes, they absolutely should have had an attorney involved from day one, our actual attorneys, our actual lawyers, is because, maybe law school makes you a little jaded. But what you see is the person that you marry is not the person that you divorce. It's just that simple. When you're in love, right? When you're planning the wedding, I get it. You don't want to have that hard, tough conversation. You don't want to make things awkward. You don't want to create a situation that might make it tense. But at the same time, right? If you're about to marry this person, shouldn't you be able to have a hard, tough conversation with this person? Right? You shouldn't be afraid to have a tough conversation with the person that you're about to enter into a relationship with. Then you get the people who say, well, I feel like if you are, planning, no, what do they say? They say like, I feel like if you're gonna do a prenuptial agreement, you're essentially planning for your divorce. And I just don't agree with that. You have to have car insurance, not because you think you're going to get into a car accident, but because you know that car accidents happen. And in the case you get into a car accident, you don't want to be left hanging. You want to know that you are covered, right? Same thing with any kind of insurance. It's not necessarily planning for a divorce. I don't think that anybody walks down the aisle and think to themselves, I wonder how long until I'm gonna have to pull out that prenup. I don't think that's, and that's what you thinking, then you got some other problems. But most of the time, that's not really what's happening. But having a prenuptial agreement, it protects everyone involved. It makes you really put out there, what are your finances looking like, right? What are your priorities? If things were to go downhill, what does it look like for us? And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I took notes, of course, and I just want to make sure I hit on all of the reasons why I think prenups are important. And let's see, did I hit on everything? Yeah, they protect all of the parties involved. You should be able to have these tough conversations with a person that you're saying that you're gonna spend the rest of your life with. Oh, and also just the thought of, it's easier to have the conversation while you're in love, right? While you still have this mutual respect for each other, while you still are in that honeymoon phase, that's really, in my opinion, the time to really break it down and say, okay, if things were to hit the fan, boo, what's going to happen? How are we going to deal with it? The time to do that is not when ish has already hit the fan, because that's when you're feeling vindictive and you're feeling petty and you are truly at your worst. So why not just kind of get ahead of it? Because at the end of the day, and what people have to realize what you have to realize is if something were to happen, you're gonna have this conversation regardless. Now you're leaving it up to the government to decide how assets are split. Or now after the case, you're trying to work with the very person who you can no longer stand to come to the same conclusions that you could have came to when you were in a much better place. And had Cardi B and Offset had lawyers involved, which they should have they already had lawyers. They were already in the business. So I'm not sure, they should have had lawyers involved from the beginning. And had they, then Offset would not be able to be leveraging the system to essentially be petty and get back at Cardi B, because I truly believe that's what's happening right now. And also, I want to point out that one thing that I feel like I hear a lot from people who were like just against prenuptial agreements is, well, I ain't got no money. What I need a prenup for? I ain't got nothing. He ain't got nothing. Listen, I'm telling you, get a prenup. It doesn't matter what you come into the relationship with. You can put almost anything in a prenup. The only thing that usually you cannot put in a prenup is basically how if you have kids later down the line, or even if you have kids before, you usually can't put in a contract how you would handle the kids, because that just comes down to what's in the best interest of the kids at that time, right? So if it's 2010, we're not gonna say that if in the case you get into a divorce 10 years later that I get to have this kid, I get full custody of this kid, and we're not gonna play that game, because we don't know that if a divorce happens 10 years down the line that you are actually the person who should have the kids at that time. So kids are off limits. Outside of that though, you can pretty much put whatever you want. Whether you have $10 to your name or $10 million to your name is beside the point. And honestly, you don't even need an attorney. A prenup is a contract. So you don't have to necessarily have attorneys involved either. If you can, I recommend it, of course, but it's really just about protecting yourself, your assets, and your family. And had Cardi B and Offset had lawyers involved, especially considering how fast they got married, especially considering the cheating that was happening in this relationship, she would not be in this position, and he would not have the ability to leverage this particular part of the legal system to essentially tick her off. Another thing is too, there aren't just prenups, there are postnups. So if you don't have a prenup and you have listened to the Emajae Talks Everything podcast and you're like, you know what, girl, he been acting a little weird lately, or she been getting on my nerves a little lately. Yeah, go get a postnup. Go get you a postnup. You can do that as well. And it's basically the same thing. Of course, the only difference is you are now married. And so sometimes there's a little bit of leverage, right? That's not there as much. If anybody is a fan of Housewives, oh yes. If anybody watches The Real Housewives of Atlanta, you might remember my girl Kandi Burruss, right? My Taurus sister. She was getting married to her now husband, and they were shooting the wedding. I think it was a wedding special. And one of the main sources of drama on the special was she wanted a prenup. And he was being real funny about it. He was being real funny about the prenup. And I remember he hadn't even signed it. I think it was the day before the wedding, and he still hadn't signed that prenup. And when I tell you, Kandi was like, well, listen, he might not sign it, but if he don't sign it, we just gonna have us a big old party tomorrow, because she was not getting married without a prenup. She had a child already before him. She had assets. She had so much to lose. And in her mind, which I think is very smart, it's not worth it for me to risk all that I have worked for before you for the sake of a relationship that I hope works, but that I am not 100% will work. Because statistically, you just never know. Okay? And you just never know. And I know it's not a fun thing to talk about. I know that there's a lot of reasons, tradition, religion, a lot of reasons why people might choose not to go the route of having a prenup. And I respect that. And I think you should really do what works for you and what works for your partner. But we really have to rid ourselves of these ideas of, oh, you know, I'm planning for my divorce. Like these just kind of made up things that we tell ourselves, when the reality is prenuptial agreements are there to protect everybody. And if you are in a situation like Cardi B, where you are getting married quickly, or you are dealing with a volatile relationship, you probably should be at the front of the line considering getting a prenup. And shout out to my girl Cardi. I wish her the best. Shout out to Offset. I really wish him peace and happiness so that he can stop disturbing her peace and her happiness. I'm pretty sure we will be talking about them again, because as happy as I am for my girl, let's just see how this relationship goes. Let's just see how this new relationship goes. I think she's just out there having a fun time, and good for her. Every time a woman moves on, that's when a man wants to do all of the extra stuff. He was with this woman for years, disrespected her, cheated on her, all the things. And now that she is moved on, now that he has the freedom to do what he wants to do, that's when he want to act a fool. Like, you got to make that make sense to me. Okay. But let's just move on, because I'm already tired of them. So did I get a message? Okay. So moving on, Cardi B and Offset, we'll come back to them. Get a prenup. If nothing else from this, get a prenup, get a postnup. Yeah, that's free advice right there. Okay. Whew. So next, I want to talk about Donald Trump and the pardons that he has bestowed upon multiple people within the past week or so. The reason I wanted to talk about pardons specifically, because as you know, turn on the TV, you know that there are a million things that we could be getting into when it comes to the current administration. And trust me, you're going to get a lot of that here, right? A lot of breakdowns, a lot of talk. But I wanted to start with the pardons, particularly because I noticed that quite a few people have been super excited about all of the different people that Donald Trump has pardoned. And if I'm being honest, which I will, I saw that one of or two of the people that he pardoned are the Chrisleys, right? And I don't know if you're familiar with the Chrisleys, but essentially they are personalities. They've been on multiple shows. They had their own reality TV show. I really don't know how to describe them, because they kind of just popped up out of nowhere, and they're just an entertaining family from the South. Like, I really don't know how else to describe them, but I used to watch their show back in the day, the Chrisleys, and it's so funny. Like, it's such a funny, hilarious show. And when I saw that they were pardoned, I realized, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm kind of excited about this. That means we get the show back. Like, yes. But with anything, you have to ask why. Like, why are these things happening? I think that's very important. And I'm going to get into why. And I want to start with just generally speaking, what a pardon is. So let's start with a pardon, because sometimes you just got to take it all the way back, which is perfectly fine, and get into it. So what is a presidential pardon? A pardon is essentially a constitutional power or authority that the president of the United States has to essentially grant relief for someone who is locked up, right? Like, I'm trying to simplify it in the best way, but I'm going to read the definition that protectdemocracy.org has provided. I think it pretty much sums it up. So Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution vests the president with a broad but limited power to grant reprieves and pardons. According to the Supreme Court, the pardon power is intended as a tool for justice and mercy. It's considered an act of grace, but it's mainly to further the public welfare. As one federal court has held, the president who exercises that power as the elected representative of all the people must always exercise it in the public interest. Okay? So, sum it up. The Constitution gives the president broad but limited power to give an act of grace in the interest of justice to people who are locked up, but it should be done in the interest of the public, okay? Now, why is that important and why is that definition particularly important is because what we're seeing with these pardons is Trump is pardoning people who essentially serve his best interests, not the public's best interest. And that's highly problematic because, number one, what we've seen consistently with this administration, with this president, is this constant push against constitutional authority. It's like, here's the line of the Constitution, and as many times that they can kind of step over that line, Trump continues to try to do that, which is very, very dangerous because what he does in this administration will set the precedent for what other presidents can do in their administration. And that's why I think it's very important to call it out when we see it. When we see constitutional authority just kind of being ignored, it's very important to call it out and challenge it for what it is, which is unconstitutional. But most importantly, with these pardons, like I said, myself included, I got very, very excited to see, oh my goodness, the Chrisleys, they were pardoned. Notorious gang leader Larry Hoover. I know, they call me Big Meech. Larry Hoover, yeah, that one, he was pardoned. So a lot of people are actually like very happy that Trump has done this, and I just don't like it. I don't like it because the reality is he's doing this and he's pardoning certain people for his own reasons. And so I found this article for CBS News, and it talks about how Trump's pardons in this term include convicted fraudsters and supporters. And historically, Trump has pardoned people who have essentially helped him in getting reelected, who have just been avid supporters of him as an individual. And again, that is not what the pardon power is supposed to be for. It is supposed to serve the public interest. And so CBS News has compiled a list of some of the people that Trump has pardoned recently and kind of discuss the nuances behind why Trump has pardoned these people. So I'm gonna just touch on quite a few, and I'm gonna start with the reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley. So it says, Mr. Trump said on May 27th that he would pardon reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley, who were imprisoned after being sentenced in 2022 on bank fraud and tax evasion charges. Doesn't that sound familiar? Trump? Doesn't it sound familiar, right? The couple who starred on Chrisley Knows Best submitted false financial statements to obtain more than $30 million in personal loans, which they spend on luxury cars, designer clothes, real estate, and travel, the Justice Department said. The couple also concealed their income from the IRS to avoid paying nearly $500,000 in delinquent taxes, while also failing to file tax returns and pay taxes from 2013 through 2016. The couple pled not guilty. It says in a video posted by a White House aide, Mr. Trump can be heard speaking with the Chrisleys, children, saying, "Your parents are going to be free and clean. I hope we can do it by tomorrow." The couple's daughter, Savannah, had been seeking a pardon for her parents and has compared their case to the president's legal troubles. Yes, I'm sure she has, because it sounds very, very familiar. Listen, this is a perfect example right here, right? Like, how does releasing, and don't get me wrong, like I said, I watch Chrisley Knows Best. I watch their show. I'm a fan of their show. So I get it. I want to see more of them. However, by no means does pardoning these two reality TV stars serve the public interest. It just doesn't. They were locked up for tax evasion. They were locked up for not paying the IRS. Now, if a regular schmegular person on the side of the street don't pay the IRS, do you think we're gonna get pardoned? If you evade taxes, you at home watching this video or listening to this video on one of the many streaming platforms, do you think that the IRS is not gonna come after you? Do you think that you are gonna be up for a pardon? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This does not serve the public interest, right? So this is just one example of why these pardons just simply don't make sense. Even if you're like me and you like some of the people who have gotten pardoned, I can be objective and understand that this is just ridiculous. But let's get into just how ridiculous this is. Michael Grimm, another person that Trump just pardoned. The White House said on May 28th that Mr. Trump had pardoned former Representative Michael Grimm of New York. He pled guilty in 2014 on tax fraud and related charges. Do you see this thing? Trump, he loves people who are just as much of a criminal as he is. And by criminal, yes, you can say that because he is convicted, okay? Like, it is what it is. Prosecutors allege that he underreported wages and revenue to the government, and he filed false tax documents at a restaurant that he owned before serving in Congress. Despite the indictment, he was reelected in 2014 and pled guilty and later resigned in 2015. He attempted a comeback run in 2018, but he lost the GOP's primary for his Staten Island and Southern Brooklyn district. He was paralyzed. Okay. That's irrelevant. But once again, we have somebody else who's been pardoned with the same type of criminal behavior and same type of criminal activity as Trump. How does this man being pardoned serve the public interest, right? We're talking about the purpose behind the power that Donald Trump has as president. That's what we're talking about, and how Donald Trump is going beyond his constitutional authority. Very problematic. Ooh, let's talk about former Virginia Sheriff Scott Jenkins. On May 26th, the president said that he was pardoning a former Virginia Sheriff, Scott Jenkins, who was sentenced to prison in March on fraud and bribery charges. Jenkins took $75,000 worth of bribes, federal prosecutors said, giving badges to 8 untrained and unvetted individuals from whom he had allegedly accepted cash and campaign contributions. Jenkins pled not guilty and denied any connection between taking payments and issuing badges at trial. Mr. Trump said in a post on Truth Social that Jenkins, a long-standing supporter of the president, is a victim of an overzealous Biden Department of Justice and doesn't deserve to spend a single day in jail. He is a wonderful person who was persecuted by the radical left monsters and left for dead, Mr. Trump added. Now, okay, y'all gonna have to make this make sense once again. This man literally took $75,000 worth of bribes, gave badges to untrained and unvetted individuals as a former sheriff. And how does Trump characterize this man? As a wonderful person who was left to be persecuted by the radical left and overzealous Biden administration. I don't understand what the left or Biden has to do with this man taking bribes and giving untrained individuals badges. Do you know how dangerous that is? Do you know how crazy that is? And this is the man that you pardoned because he is a what? A long-standing supporter of the Trump administration. How does that serve the public interest? How does it serve the public interest that a sheriff is accepting bribes and in exchange for badges? It's not cool. Let's talk about ex-Hunter Biden business partner Devon Archer. Devon Archer, a former business partner of Hunter Biden, was convicted in 2018 for his connection to a scheme to fraudulently issue more than $60 million of tribal bonds to the business arm of a South Dakota-based Native American tribe. He was sentenced to a year and a day in prison. Archer, who pled not guilty, appealed his case, taking it all the way to the Supreme Court, which in 2024 refused to hear his attempt to overturn his conviction. So the Supreme Court heard the case. Trump's Supreme Court, mind you, heard this case and was like, yeah, no, we're not convinced that we need to overturn this. As Mr. Trump prepared to sign the pardon, Trump staff secretary said that the tone and tenor of the case against Archer changed dramatically after he began to cooperate with congressional investigators and serve as a witness against Hunter Biden and the Biden family. It says, many people have asked me to do this, Mr. Trump said before signing the pardon. Who asked you to do this? Who asked you to do this, Trump? I want to know. Name them. Trump said, I think he was treated very unfairly. And I looked at the record, studied the record, and he was. Now, do y'all think Trump studied anything? Do y'all think Trump studied anything? I'm just saying, okay. It says he was a victim of a crime as far as I'm concerned, so we're going to undo that. Again, this is so obviously not in the public's interest at all. This is about the fact that this man was locked up, and once he was willing to speak to Congress and turn against Trump's arch nemesis, or the child of at least Trump's arch nemesis, Biden, right? That's who he said. Yeah, he was a witness against Hunter Biden and the Biden family. Okay, now all of a sudden, I'll pardon you because you turned. Again, this is serving Trump's own administration, his own political strategy, right? It has nothing to do with what the constitutional authority behind pardoning has to do with. And the most important thing that we have to remember is even when things seem like they're on the up, right? Like even when it seems like, oh, you know, he is pardoning Larry Hoover, he's pardoning the Chrisleys, you gotta ask the question, why? Nothing is just happening. These are all strategic moves. And when you really get down to it, you notice that a lot of this is just serving the administration's own interests, and it is dangerous. It's very dangerous. We are hearing Trump say things like, I'm gonna go for a third term. Now, legally, at the moment, that's impossible. But one thing that we've seen consistent throughout this administration is pushing constitutional authority to challenge what has been, you know, the way things go. There is no such thing as, you know, going with the norms of we know what to expect because this is what the Constitution says, or you know, that's not happening anymore. We're seeing a lot of challenges to the Constitution, and when you have a president like Trump who just disregards legal authority, disregards the go-to standards of law, disregards the Constitution, what are we signaling to other countries? What are we signaling to the everyday person that they can break the law too? Because that's what it's giving. It's giving, if the president of the United States can ignore the law, then I can too. And that is not a safe space to be in. That is not the route that we want to go. And that's specifically why I chose to start off my political commentary of sorts with this pardoning situation, because a lot of people are excited when they see names that they're familiar with. Yeah, so people do get excited when they see names that they're familiar with. And I get it. Sometimes you want to be optimistic about what's happening, whether it's in this administration specifically or whether it's just in the world specifically. But until we ask those deeper questions of why and question everything. When I was a kid, I used to get in so much trouble because I was the why kid. I was the kid who wanted to know, Emajae, do this. Okay, why? And listen, when you a kid, okay, when you are a child, you get the because I said so, you know, and luckily I did have, you know, a mom who did explain things, but I was curious. I wanted to know. Everything had to make sense in my head. And one thing you'll hear me say all the time on this pod is make it make sense. Make it make sense. And I believe that one of the reasons why in this current administration, I do so much research, specifically, besides the fact that it's just kind of trained into who I am, is because everything deserves a why. There's so much misinformation. And that's part of the reason why you'll always see me with some notes. You'll always see me pull up the receipts, because at the baseline, we need to be starting from facts. At the baseline, we need to be starting from the truth. And on this platform, I feel like I have a responsibility to provide accurate information. Now, my opinion is my opinion, right? Emajae's opinion is Emajae's opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion. And I hope you share your opinion in the comments. But we have to be starting from a place of truth. And even though we're excited about what something appears to be, You have to ask the question why. And when I started asking, as much as I like the Chrisleys, it's very interesting that of all of the people who are locked up for things that they should not be locked up for all of the people who are still in jail for marijuana related offenses, meanwhile, people all over the country are building multi-million-dollar businesses based off of marijuana. I mean, you have to make stuff like that make sense for me, you know? And until you do, you're gonna get stuff like this. You're gonna get stuff where it appears to be one thing, but it really comes down to serving the administration's own interests, challenging constitutional power, setting a precedent that we do not want set. And that is how I'm gonna wrap up my conversation about Trump. That's actually how I'm gonna wrap up this video. I have talked Cardi B, Offset, Trump, prenups. I think we've gotten into everything in the news that I wanted to talk about this week. Tell me a little bit about what you want me to talk about. That's something that I'm gonna start doing, is every now and again, follow me on my social pages, and always make sure you let me know, you know, I'm not everywhere all at once. Okay, that was a great movie, by the way, but I'm not everywhere all at once. So if there's something that's happening in the news that you want me to talk about, make sure to let me know. Give me a holler, leave a comment. And I think that's it. The main takeaways from this video: get a prenup or a post-nup. Okay? Don't let yourself be Cardi B, and don't let yourself get played by an Offset, okay? And the second thing is to always ask why. If you see something that's happening in the news, especially with this administration, go look it up yourself. Reading is fundamental, and that's where I think I'm gonna leave it this week. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and talk soon.
It's everything. I'm everything.